Stephen K Amos here, and welcome to another episode of Me, I Blame the Parents. Join me in conversation with my peers, the children of the silent generation and the baby boomers born between 1928 and 1964. Those folks who tapped their feet to the foxtrot, experienced rationing during the war, witnessed the moon landings, and decimalisation made their heads explode. My guest today is a very good friend of mine, a comedian, actor, TV presenter, one-time semi-professional footballer. I asked him how his parents used to banter in the car.
I remember my mum and dad had a row once. He was getting a bit of road rage. They were coming back from somewhere, and my mum went, "Oh, you really are getting right on my tits." And my dad going, "Chance be a fine thing."
And what you need to do if you get on the wrong side of royalty.
So I had to write a letter of apology to the King of Dubai, even though he's got a lot of slavery going on, right? But I didn't want to mention that, right?
So please welcome Terry Alderton. I began by asking him about his humble beginnings.
I am an Essex boy through and through. I was born in Southend-on-Sea. Well, not on the seafront. I was born at Rochford Hospital. Many big stars born there. In fact, what's his name was born there? You know, old Mr. Keyboard. Bonendane Crooney.
Bonendane Crooney? You think of Elton John?
No, not... No. What's his name? Nice young... Well, he's probably 40 now. He's young to us.
Jamie Cullum?
Yes, thank you.
Oh, right, okay. So,
yes, he was born at Rochford Hospital. I wonder if he knows that I was born there as well.
I think if he knew that, he'd probably distance himself.
I think he would. I think he has.
So you were born, Southend boy through and through. To what kind of parents?
So my mum Sandy, she is still a very bubbly, active lady. If you met my mum, you go, well, there's where all your energy comes from. My dad is very much a dad of dad jokes.
Okay.
You know, there's always a dad joke. He'll always say, I can't help myself. And my dad was in the building trade, a plumber, really. But a bit of a jack of all trades as well. But really, essentially, he's a plumber.
Knowing what you've done throughout your career, and then what you said about your dad, jack of all trades, that could be you as well. Because acting, presenting, stand-up comedy, you've done the whole shebang.
I have done the whole shebang, yeah. Not like a jack of all trades, not go anywhere.
So your parents, what generation are they?
My dad was born in 1940, right at the beginning of the war. My mum, 44, she was then born, of course, towards the end of the war. But it's quite funny because I always have this joke with my mum with how technology has moved on. And my mum's she's really good with Twitter and all that kind of thing, believe it or not. And she's 70 odd? You can do the math, 6. But she, obviously, this is always a joke we have, she didn't see a banana till 1956. And now, look where we are, me talking to you on this, blah, 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 etc.
That is quite incredible.
So it's quite a change for that generation, you know, to see that is a massive technological change. And also society's changed massively as well. So, yeah, they are people of the 40s. Because
of that, and because with the knowledge that there's a lot of change that's happened in their lifetime, do you give your parents leeway, say, for any shortcomings they may have?
Yeah, I do. And I tell you why I do that. Because I do find it a bit harsh when people can be, they're old, they're bigoted, they're racist, you know. And people do jump on that. But there is a but, right? And everyone should be educated, blah, blah, blah. But they knew a different time to us. You know, they knew a different time. They knew the war. They knew how Britain was then. And I think people of that generation, to a degree, should be allowed to have what they know and what they liked.
I tend to agree with you there, Terry, because without their knowledge and the things they did, we wouldn't be where we are today. Do you know what I mean? Because that's the way the world works. And I would give them a bit of leeway as long as they're prepared to listen.
That is very true. And sometimes when I discuss things with my mum, especially my mum, you know, she'll come out with something and I'll be like, you've not read about it. You don't know about it. But my mum is also quite liberal as well at times. And I remember when I was at school and I was probably 14, the age of my son now. And I came home and I said something like, oh, he's a raving puff or something like that, you know. because I was living in South Woodham in this back sticks of nowhere. And my mum went, "What do you mean by that?" I went, "Well, he's a pufter, isn't he?" And my mum went, "That's a terrible thing to say." And I said kind of, innocently and ignorantly, I said, "Is it?" And she's like, "Well, yeah, because what people get up to in their own lives is nothing to do with you and not something you should ever comment on, really, right?" Now, that's what I would think now, of course, right? And she's absolutely right. And then I said to her, "All right, what if I said that, I'm gay?" She went, "Well, hold on a second." But I've since discussed that with my mum, and she goes, "No, that's not what I meant. I meant, are you about to tell me something? Are you about to tell me you're coming out here,
You've got one sister, is that true?
Yeah, Katrina, yeah.
Yeah?
Yep.
Is she older or younger?
She is older than me. She's 5.5 years older. So she's 27 now. Hey! She's 55, Katrina. So she was in nursing, mental health, funny enough. There we are.
So just 4 of you in the family?
4 of us in the family, yeah.
So what was that dynamic like?
Well, I was the brother that was always following her around because she'd be like, "Can you stop following me?" Because she'd be with a boyfriend at that time, 15. I'll be 10, wouldn't I? Why can't I come? You can't come, right?
I know, I was going to go there.
Hey! But I remember my sister was very generous to me. She was very loving, my sister. Like, for example, I remember, I don't know, it was Easter one year and I broke my Cadbury's Creme egg or something. And straight away she goes, "You can have mine." She'd be very good like that. "You can have mine," But I was also quite a bit of a rotter, I think, at the same time. And I remember as well, they were the days when you go down the park and sit on the benches and everyone would be smoking and drinking. And I'd be one of the little rats, sort of 10-year-old brothers that would be allowed out down the park in those days to smoke and drink. Yes, my sister's very caring and very generous. She was one of those that would always say as well to all her mates, "I wouldn't go around mine."
Yeah, yeah.
So there was always loads of teenagers in my house and my mum and dad would go, "All right." My dad would probably be asleep, to be fair.
So was there any difference between the way you were treated?
No, I think my sister will have it that I'm the favoured one.
Oh.
Yeah, I'm the golden boy. My mum would never give me any stick. I was all singing, all dancing performer. I know my sister has a different relationship with my parents to what I had. But you have to remember, my mum was 18 when she married my dad. And I think my sister came along when my mum was 21. So my mum was still very young. So by the time I'd come along, they'd matured and aged.
Yeah.
You see? So I think once my sister hit teenage years, they were younger. Does this all make sense? They were younger to when I was then hitting teenage years, where they became maybe a bit more liberal, a bit more understanding. My sister took the brunt of the first child syndrome and, and then when they realised it was all right with her, then, all right, okay. But my sister would always go, "You've got the perfect teeth, you've got lovely hair." She won.
I can't even understand or comprehend what it's like to have one sibling, and especially one sibling of the opposite sex. Because I've got 2 brothers and 4 sisters.
You were fighting for something, weren't you? You would have to all be fighting for something. I mean, I was in the situation of like, well, if she doesn't want the potato, do you want the potato? You were in a place where everyone's getting their knives and forks and stabbing at the potatoes. And my dad, funny enough, Stephen, had exactly the same as you. He came up with a massive family as well. He was one of 8, 3 brothers and 4 sisters. So I've known from my dad's experiences exactly what you grew up with, because my dad said, if you didn't get in quick, you weren't eating.
Oh, so do you think that's why your dad sort of was happy settled with 2 of you?
I think that if they had a boy, they'd leave it there. Does that make sense? So yeah, I think they got one of each. They were more than happy. Also, I think my mum and dad were quite sensible in the fact that that's what they could afford as well.
Which is quite unusual, really.
Yeah, I do think my mum and dad were not stupid to say, we can't afford to have more children. My dad might see it differently. He might say, well, things were different, if you know what I mean. I remember my mum and dad had a row once, and she said something like, he was getting a bit of road rage. They were coming back from somewhere, and my mum went, "Oh, you really are getting right on my tits." And my dad going, "Chance be a fine thing." Sitting in the back of a car when you're 6 thinking, what's that all about? My mum never really comes out with things like that either. My mum is really... She's one a bit, like if a pair of boobs come on the telly when I was a kid, she'd be putting her hands over my eyes, going, oh, you can't see that. She told me years ago she was going out with this boy before she met my dad. So she would have been very young, and the bloke's obviously having a kiss and a cuddle with my mum. And she said he kept going to me, give us a wink. So she said I kept winking at him, I mean, she kept going, no, come on, give us a wink. And she kept going with her eye, winking at him. To this day, she said, I didn't know what the hell he was on about until years later.
Oh,
give us a wink.
The poor woman, the naivety. Well, good.
The naivety. Yeah, my mum, bless her.
Were they talkative with you? Could you discuss things?
Yeah, totally. My mum and dad, friends. They're friends. I consider my mum and dad good mates. Yeah.
So nothing was off limits?
Nothing's off limits with my mum and dad, no. Sex, a lot, everything. I mean, they think I swear too much. They'll tell me that. Dad doesn't like swearing. But, I have heated discussions with my mum about things because we see things differently, and that's a generational thing again. I think that's why she gets quite upset, because she's like, well, you don't know what we knew.
Did you sit down and have the talk with either your mum or your dad?
No, I remember my dad telling me things when I started working with him in the van. My dad would say things like, don't mess around with people's lives, or my mum would be more like that. Actually, she'd be don't mess around with girls, and she was talking about being, faithful, I think, and not disrespecting. My mum would always write me on how to be with ladies. Never mention a lady's weight or size, never swear in front of women. And I actually think, and no one can shout me down on this, right? Because there's not a woman out there that can shout this down. I'm a good husband, mate. I'm never ever strayed from my wife. Never ever. I would never do that. And I'm putting it out here publicly, and I know there's no one out there that can say I have, because they're lying. Because Dee's my mate, so I wouldn't want to live with the lie. And my son, I would never do that to him, so, and not that any women fans.
But I've seen you with your son, and it does strike me when I've seen you guys together that you're also mates.
Oh, we're good pals, yeah, really good mates.
Yeah, because he's into the football, so you bond over that.
What it is, Stephen, with him is he knows. I've only got to look at him, and he then knows that it's the friendship's in trouble. I think that's what he would think. He would think, oh shit, the friendship's in trouble. He does take the piss. Of course he does. He's 14. He takes the piss all the time. But he's not a bad kid.
Would you have the talk with him?
They've got phones. Come on.
They've got phones.
they're well past the talk, mate. I'm at a point now trying to subtly say porno sex. That's not.
It's not real.
Because but I can't admit to him that I know that he's watching porn. We're at that point at this moment, But he and I get on so well.
Absolutely, and you're obviously making good memories for him for the future. And they do say, though, that memory does fade with age. So this is a very interesting question.
Yes, and that is why I'm always around for him, because I know that the snippets are constant snippets, and I've been blessed with everything I have and everything I've done.
Is there something from your childhood that you can think of, for example, where it's something that's so vivid that you remember, but your parents have the complete opposite?
Oh, yeah, they don't remember it at all. Oh, we've got a great story. Me and my mum remember the car. He does never remember the car, right? My dad bought this old Cortina. He smashed his car. And, I mean, the Cortina he bought, if he had that now, it'd probably worth about 30 grand, right? But he bought the old banger, right? Mark 1, he swears blind that he never had that car. And me and my mum and my sister say, you did. And he swears blind he did not. And it's hilarious. And to this day, we go on. And he'd listen to this, go, no, never had it. And we'd go, you did?
Seriously?
He does not remember it. He only had it, to be fair, for probably, I don't know, in my head, maybe two months. And the funny thing was, when I think about my dad doing that, he was probably 10 years younger than I am now. That's the funny thing. When you look back at your parents, you think, God, my dad was only 34 then.
Do you see yourself in neither your mum or your dad?
I see myself facially a lot in my dad these days. I also look like my mum's Uncle Harry as well. If you saw pictures of Harry, you'd go, "Oh, I can really see it." He was a very funny man. He was very funny. Oh, he would have been a very brilliant dry stand-up. I mean, very cutting, very Jewish. You see, my mum's side was very Jewish. Their parents ran from the war, you see. So we're not sure. I think they might be Polish Jewish, but it was got rid of, if that makes sense. So it never filtered down.
Yes.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
But their traits, like my nan, it's only now when I think back about my nan, she was very Jewish. I mean, in a way, the way she would talk, she etc. She was very, she looked. So my mum looks very Jewish. When you'd see pictures of my mum, she looks like a pretty young Jewish girl.
Is there a catchphrase from your childhood that they always use?
Oh, we might do something where go, well, that's Gerald. Right, so if something goes missing, right, when we lived in South Woodham Ferrers, which is this little town just outside Chelmsford, things would literally, keys would end up in washing machines and stuff like that. Things would go missing. So either one of them had a very early onset mental problems or there was a ghost. And for some reason, we named him Gerald. And also, of course, my imaginary friend comes up as well, Bogey. But Bogey's still here, mate. Anyway, he's still around. That's why the talking to myself, I do it so well, is because I've spent my life talking to me and my friends.
Wow. So when your son was younger,
yeah,
did you know how they think lots of kids have imaginary friends or whatever? Did you put that in his head?
No, he doesn't.
He
doesn't have any of that. He doesn't have any of that. But he's got used to hearing me talking now, because here's a guy he's talking to. He doesn't even bother with that anymore because he just knows. It's obviously like Dee never ever mentions it. I always say to Dee, imagine when she started living with me and I got familiar and we're farting in front of each other. Can we put it like that? It's just cut to the chase,
yes.
Right? Obviously, I relaxed, and she must have heard me. I never even said, "Look, I talk to myself." I know everyone says they talk to themselves, but I mean, I have discussions full on with several people. Which is probably quite disconcerting. But she just doesn't really bring it up.
You said some really nice things about your sister, and of course your mum gave you free rein because you were like, singing and dancing. As a singer and dancing kid, how did your dad react to that?
He was asleep. Do you know what? All joking aside, I say my dad was asleep. That was a reason, really, I got into showbiz massively, because I used to watch my dad come home from work and go to sleep. And I used to think, I don't want that. He'd go out with the cracker sparrows, and then he'd be home and, put his tracksuit on and he'd have his tea and drop off. And I thought, I don't want that. It was a big part of me. And I thought, the other thing is, I always get excited when my dad would come home. I could hear his van pull in. I'd be very excited, and he'd fall asleep. And I thought, when I have a kid, I'm not going to do that. So showbiz was perfect for me because I've been with my son all the time.
I find it really fascinating that you said something just there about when you hear your dad's van come in, you get excited to see him.
I was right. I'd be really excited. And even till, I'd still get excited now when my mum and dad pull up. Can't wait to see them. It's still the same. I don't know whether I've not grown up. I mean, everyone says that, don't they? They still feel like they did when they were... I still feel like I'm between 8 and 18.
I remember dreading my dad coming home.
Oh, right, okay.
Yeah, because he'd be stressed all day at work, and then he'd bring that stress home to all these young kids.
Yeah.
So we never really had fun, Dad.
That's a shame. That's a shame to hear that. Yeah, maybe you're right. Maybe I was just very lucky.
Do you have an earliest memory of your parents?
I think I can remember my mum. There must be others, but one really sticks in my mind. There was a storm. It was thunder and lightning, and my mum said to me, "Don't worry, it's just God moving his furniture around." I'm sure other people have had that one, right? It's God just moving his furniture around, and I went, "Oh right, okay." And she said, "I tell you what we'll do. We shut all the curtains," and I think it was just at the time, Rainbow was coming on. I watched with Mother and all that, so I can remember we had this old black and white television. It was so of the 70s. It was like something from outer space. It was sort of white going into this white stand, all connected. You know those kind of ones with the big buttons? You push them and you hurt your finger and you push them in, And Rainbow, I remember it was raining. Oh yeah, Gastro. It was a good excuse to get an impression in there. And yeah, so I remember my mum doing that, and then that was an interesting thing. Then she would give me food, and my wife is really one for that. She goes, parents will always give kids food. They hurt themselves. Do you want a lolly? And my wife always goes on about how that's not a good thing, you know, because people will comfort eat through the rest of their lives then. Because you hurt yourself, and then you think, oh shit, I'll make myself a cup of tea, or I'll make some food because I feel down.
Well, I hate to see your son in trouble then. You must be starving.
Oh, that's brilliant.
You know, having known you for a long time,
Yeah.
you've not only have you done show business, you've done football with Southend, all these impressions. Your style of comedy and stand-up has changed over the
Hugely,
years.
yeah.
You've been heavily into mimicry as well. Where does this showing off come from?
With audiences, the bigger the playground, the bigger I show off. You know, the more the people start applauding and laughing, like all of us, I suppose. And where did it come from is a very interesting question. Like I said, my mum is very outward, you know, and my dad was pretty outward, but more not so bounce around the room kind of thing. I also used to watch things like, you know, like Life and Majesties on a Sunday or whatever. And when the comedians would come on, my mum seemed to enjoy that. And I remember when Bobby Davro came on the scene, you know, I was heavily into people who could do impressions. So I was like blown away by this guy, you know. So I think I started then doing impressions, and I think I was about 15 and I was working in a kitchen doing the washing up and stuff, you know, as a Saturday job at the Warren Golf Club. And the two chefs, one was a pisshead, and he used to come in and burn me with hot water and stuff. Honestly, he was a fucking lunatic. I swore there, sorry. I digressed there, but the reason I remember being in there and saying to these guys, I'm going to be a comedy impressionist, really famous comedy impressionist one day, and they used to laugh and go, you're not, go back and wash dishes. And that was the point. I remember going home to my parents and saying, right, I'm going to be a comedy impressionist, and my mum said, what are you talking about? And I did all these impressions, and they were like, righto, and that was it.
What I want to pick up there though is when you came home and you tell your parents, and what was their reaction? Were they supportive?
Oh, hugely. Totally and utterly supportive. And in fact, what I did, I remember I had a girlfriend at the time. Well, that's a point. I had my first girlfriend, and her parents used to go to this holiday centre called Potters, right? You know where they do the indoor championship bowling. And I went there, and Mark Brewer's a dear friend of mine now. He was the entertainment manager, still is. And he said to me, you know, I said, I want to be a comedian. I remember he was standing there eating a burger. He went, oh, do you? He said, would you want to do the talent show tomorrow? So I did it, and I did all these impressions. And of course, because I was a punter who could do stuff, and I was mimicking him and his team as well, you know, I was like, it was probably the best gig of my life. It was unbelievable. And then I went and started working at that holiday centre. So my mum and dad were well behind that. But my mum always says, you know, you went there a child, you came back a man, you know, because I was 18.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's very encouraging to hear that as well. Because from my perspective, I think because my parents very much working class people, they never saw the idea of going on stage, entertaining as a viable career option.
Right. Yeah.
So to hear that your working class parents went, go on, son, go for it.
As long my mum and my dad. You know, my dad was asleep, but my dad was just. No, anything, you know, do what you want. But as long as I was working. So they were fine with whatever it was, you know, not at one point. But when it was showbiz, of course, my mum loves it.
Yeah, I think mums do love it when it goes really well. So was there a defining point for you that you can say in your career up to date that your mum and dad were like, yeah, that's my boy?
Oh, yeah, definitely. I think one of the couple of times when they came and saw me and, you know, they saw the reactions, because you can back it up, you know, I go quite well. So they saw people standing, should we say, and what have you, and that was a lovely moment. And I think a big moment for them, because my mum, when I went into Eastenders, when you're in that show, it's quite something different to what we know as comedians, as people coming up to us and saying, can I have your autograph, Stephen or Terry? It's a different animal. It's crazy, you know, people will be screaming like you're a pop star. It's bonkers. And so my mum and dad witnessed that kind of thing, and me being mobbed, if you like, and whatever you. And You know, that is one side of the success, one side of it. But my mum and my dad all definitely recognised the success outside of that as well. But it was nice for them to witness me being publicly accepted, if that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah. What does that give you then when you see your parents? My parents only ever see me do live stand-up comedy probably 3 times in my life. Right. It was at the Hammersmith Apollo. I can see them right in the middle in the stalls.
I know where they'd be sitting.
And they... Well, yeah, exactly.
I know where they are.
And they were just loving it. And it's an energy and a thing that I've never seen before. And it just gave me a strength to do even better.
Yeah. Well, I think on live performance, probably my favourite show I've ever done in Edinburgh. You know, it was from the bottom of my heart, an enactment of having bipolar and mental health issues. Not that I would ever talk about that now, because he seems to be jumping on a bandwagon. It's become fashionable now, so I don't talk about mental health anymore. But, I just wanted to do a show to show people what it's like physically. And the reactions that show got was not just, there was a deep feeling. It was more of it wasn't just like people going, oh, that was entertaining. It was heartfelt, if that makes sense. And I think my mum and dad came and saw 3 shows. And the reason I bring it in is because I'm bearing my bones, and my mum knew I wasn't lying on that stage, and my dad knew I wasn't lying. They were sitting there thinking, no, this is true. This is all real. This is not him making this up. This is everything he's bearing here is truth. And at the end of it, it was as if people were applauding the honesty, I think,
Yes.
And I think that was lovely for them to see.
Well, that's... I really do hope they hear this, because...
they will. My mum listens to everything.
My mum, she's got all my clippings.
She got everything.
Toenails and everything.
Hey!
It's very rare that comedians get to a point where they can sort of display some sort of vulnerability and honesty. Now, having known you for many, many years, I was shocked, like a lot of our colleagues were, when suddenly you were doing this thing on stage that nobody else was doing.
Yeah.
So nobody else, and it was brave, it was dangerous, it was on the edge. Would it work? Would it not? And just turned, as far as I'm concerned, the notion of stand-up comedy on its head.
Oh, that's very nice. That's very nice.
Absolutely. And it just made me think about the freedom or the distress maybe that you were in to get to that point.
Yeah, okay, so I was, I'm not going to go on about it too much, but I was obviously, didn't know I was depressed, okay? And I had been very down, the Twin Towers had been hit, that kind of stuff, and I'd masticked all my windows in my house, and Dee had only just married me, and she was obviously thinking, what have I done? But bless her, she stuck by me. And she kept saying to me all the time, you need to have some help. And I would go, I don't know what you're on about. I didn't understand. I was not aware of what was going on. Because at this time, I'd had this big TV rise, right? I was doing primetime BBC and everything. And then I got dumped like that. It was gone. It was gone in a heartbeat. And I think I did London's Burning, and that was the end. There was nothing. I was gone. It was finished. And even my agent at the time, he said to me, "You're finished." He told me, "You're finished. You've got to go out and start fighting, or it's over." And at this time, I was only 31. So, whatever. And Dee said to me, "You've got to go back and do stand-up comedy, right?" I said, "If I go back and do stand-up comedy," I said, everyone will be saying, "Oh, look who's back! Look who's back! Look who's fallen down the ladder! Look who's back!" Right? And she said to me, she said, "Do you think everyone's in dressing rooms talking about you?" And I suddenly thought, fucking hell, how indulgent have I become here? This is madness. And that's one of the big things of depression, I find. It becomes a very self-indulgent thing. So I went and did some Dubai gigs, which I know you've done. And I got there and I was turfing out the same old shit that I've been doing because it worked. Of course, now it was dated. It was all dated. It was hack anyway. It was a load of hack crap. And I went on stage and I did this material. I said, if God's up there now, I'm sure he enjoys a bit of singing, but not 5 times a day. Now, you've got to bear in mind, I'm in the Middle East here doing this, right? So not 5 times a day. This is a call to prayer joke, right? I said, because he's probably up there thinking, if this isn't bad enough, as the world is spinning, I've got the Christians ringing their bells in a minute in Cornwall, right? I thought... right, so I'm like, it's fair game. Of course, at the end of the gig, they've come up to me, absolutely going, what have you done, kind of thing. We're in so much trouble here. They've had because they've got the undercover cops, haven't they, and all that crap, right? So I had to write a letter of apology to the King of Dubai, even though he's got a lot of slavery going on, right? But he didn't want to mention that, right? Anyway, the next night, I go on stage. There's a bit in my act I used to do where I was in New York City and I went up to the guy at the bar and I said, can I have a medium white wine? And he says, we only do the one size. And then the joke was I'd always turn around as if I was walking off from the bar, and then I'd do these two voices. One would go back, show him the bulldog spirit.
You must show him.
But not on this occasion. It didn't stop there. And then I just continued to do it all through the show. I'd do a routine that was shit, and I knew it was shit, and I'd turn around and go,
why is he doing this?
This routine's terrible.
He knows it is.
Why does he continue? And then I went to Edinburgh in 2006, and I did a show where I incorporated the voices in these crazy films. By the end of that Edinburgh, I knew how to wield these and make tricks and do stuff with them. I really did. It's completely original. I know that. I'm the guy that did it. But it's interesting, my close friends, my school close friends, despise that I've done this alternative bullshit, as they call it. Well, I used to like it when you were funny. And I'm like, well, when I was funny, I hadn't won something like 8 or 9 comedy awards, and I hadn't got the respect I do for my peers. And I wanted to be and make something of what I did creatively.
I want to touch on this very quickly. I'm a very private person, and that's why when I see something like when you started doing this new style of comedy with the monologues and your inner thoughts, that is something I could never yet do.
Right.
Because it took me a long time to be able to talk about personal stuff on stage.
Yeah.
And I think that's because in my family, my parents never shared personal stuff.
Right. Yeah, maybe.
The expressions of love weren't really displayed.
Oh, mine's complete flip. No, the polar opposite. Oh, my mum now, if she could, she'd grab hold of me and be kissing me and everything, and like I'm still 5 years old.
And that's always happened.
And that's the kind of thing, it's interesting that, because I remember when Bo was about 2, and I came home from a gig and I was standing over his cot, and I got so overwhelmed and so emotionally gutted for my parents, because I suddenly thought, I left them. That must have broke my mum's heart. I left her.
Wow.
And I think now, with Bo growing up, I see it's like bereavements. It's like little bereavements, when you look at photos. And, I got a bit upset the other day. I'd never told them this, or any of them, but it was good. I got it all out of me, because I was just thought, he's 14, he's growing up, and it broke my heart. And I was laying in bed, just suddenly went, oh no. And I walked around, made myself a cup of tea, but it was good to have done it. But I did. We break our parents' heart because we leave. I mean, that's my perspective of things. Some people might think my parents couldn't wait for me to go. I mean,
you've spoken quite fondly about your parents, which I've got to say is an eye-opener for me, only in terms of the fact that maybe I had a preconceived notion of proper working class Essex parents who's, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Who would just sort, you my kids, you got to go out there, make something yourselves, and be on your own. But that's not what I'm getting from you.
Oh no, but there is that though. That is your can I dare say the norm? That is how people are or were. I don't know about now, and I can't say that everybody's like that. My mum and dad were. I wouldn't say would not come across as norms either. I mean, they wouldn't be seen as complete mental cases. But
looking back, can you remember a time where your parents displayed a completely unexpected show of gratitude for something?
Oh yeah, well Christmas, Christmas. I mean, the Christmas was always fantastic. I remember one year, my mum would always joke, "It's not going to be as good this year. It's not going to be as good this year. I'm not sure Father Christmas can do this and that." And I'd be like, okay. And I remember one year, I got this tape recorder from they bought it in Asda. That was like my big present, and this will age it. It was a Dire Straits Brothers in Arm album they gave me as well. So that tells you what it was. And I remember playing it, and it would go. But I didn't say anything. That's the only year, the one year that obviously Father Christmas was really struggling. But all the other years, you know, I've been lucky with my parents. I've been lucky with my wife. I've been lucky with my son, and I'm lucky with my life. You know, God bless. I'm unbelievably lucky. I'm incredibly lucky.
Do you know what? I can't think of a finer way to end this. Yeah. You know what? You're not so. Got one thing to say to you. Be lucky.
Be lucky, son.
So that was Terry Alderton, who told us that if you've only got one sibling, you'll never ever have to fight for an extra potato. And if someone asks you for a wink, make sure you've heard them correctly. Just a little delving into what makes some parents tick, and we've got to know them a little bit better. So that's old, folks. You've been listening to Me, I Blame the Parents, starring me, Stephen K Amos, special guest Terry Alderton, produced by Hugh Sington,